What a time to be alive. We have everything we could ever want. We can travel the entire world in a few days, we can communicate with anyone in the world in less than a second, and we can entertain ourselves in a myriad of ways. However, we don't live in a perfect world. We still have conflict, and we still can't manage to get along with everyone. One of our biggest challenges has been prejudice. In the United States especially, we know prejudice, but a lot of us don't really understand how it affects our lives day in and day out. Prejudice is a widespread sociological issue which impacts every single aspect of our modern lives in many different ways. Now, I'm not saying that we live in times of mass oppression like the United States of the 40s and the 50s, but without a doubt, prejudice still exists to this day. Nowadays, prejudice is more than just black and white. With civil rights becoming more and more prevalent in our collective consciousness, people in the United States have had to adapt to a lot. This has created a lot of social tension amongst varying groups of individuals, ranging from ideological beliefs to ethnicity and even sexual orientation. People are now more than ever aware of the horrors of prejudice, but a lot of people aren't aware of how prejudice propagates and snowballs into a much more dangerous problem. I asked some students about their thoughts on prejudice in America today, and this is what they said.
Prejudice in America today, I can definitely probably say has not changed. From my research from the 1970s, pretty much anyone of a colored nature has definitely suffered so much discriminants, and I like to say discriminants as well, and besides of the fact of racism, because I like to think of it, how can you be racist against the human race? I don't really think that we can definitely sit here and continue to use that term racism, so I definitely like to say discriminatory or discriminants, but it has definitely probably sat here and been pretty even.
This phenomenon of prejudice is something I like to call spacing. Originally from the concept known by a few in the black community as white spacing, which is the geographic and sociological tension created between blacks and whites, spacing is a very similar concept, only many more groups are affected than just blacks and whites.
When I was like a senior in high school and freshman in college, I got really into this like Warhammer 40,000 tabletop.
I love Warhammer,
yeah. But cause I was like, yo, this game would be so fun. You know, you play with people, it's just fun. But then as I got to like play more and more, I realized like the people that played this game are a very specific culture, and they don't appreciate people of different cultures. And like even if they're okay with you, they almost like exoticize you. Like, you know, that whole like like black jokes, that kind of thing. Like people be like, oh, you're the most ghetto 40K player I've ever seen. I'm like, nah, like what? What's that supposed to mean? But yeah, it just was a really like white spacing thing.
I want to look at different groups affected by spacing, how it occurs, and finally, what can be done to fix it. Everyone is affected by spacing. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, homosexual, heterosexual, women, and even men. When I first experienced white spacing myself, I noticed that other groups of people were experiencing the same thing that I was. However, each person had something unique that they were experiencing that was tailored to their specific group or experience.
I used to. And it's quite odd because I have grown out of that. And when I say that I used to, is because back in high school, I was still kind of trying to figure out who I am, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be in life. And there was only just predominantly colored kids in my school. You know, you had some that was mixed. You know, some of us was black and Puerto Rican, black and Cuban, black, any type of Latino nature, or Jamaican and Italian. But I got along with everybody. It was something that was sort of quite like an intense feeling of learning like new people and experiencing new people in different cultures and different backgrounds. But now I can definitely say that I have become more comfortable in that space. So if I walk into sort of like a white space, I don't feel any different. I feel like I'm normal. I feel like I'm part of that people or part of that space because of the fact of the matter of it is I judge character. I don't judge your skin color.
Right.
Anyone who is currently in the minority in a large group of people has definitely felt that feeling before or has had this uncomfortable experience or feeling themselves. So, how can we solve it? Well, I mean, how can we prevent it? Unfortunately, there is no direct solution. There are several clear ways to possibly avoid doing it yourself, but to prevent it from ever happening in the first place, man, that's kind of tough.
So when it comes down to like prejudice and stuff, do you think that there should be a specific course of action taken against it? Should it be a more radical approach, or should people work together to fix it, or should we stand up like I guess you could say like Malcolm X versus like Martin Luther King, like that kind of where Malcolm X was more radical and Martin Luther King was more like we need to work together. Like he was still seen as a radical. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would say both of those are
Okay.
good. Like as long as we're making steps to stop prejudice, I don't want to say I don't care how you go about it, but like as long as you're taking the steps to stop prejudice, then it seems like it'd be a good thing.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So as long as you're like making people aware of it and
Yeah.
just they're thinking about it, okay. As long as you're advertising for it, right?
Yeah.
As you can see, prejudice still exists, and methods of fixing it are a lot more difficult than just a simple solution. In the modern era, prejudice has carried over into everyone, except now we choose not to discuss it and take responsibility for it. This is what propagates modern prejudice and snowballs it into violence. People will often make or act in a way that will encourage prejudice without even realizing it, simply because they aren't educated on the topic of prejudice and how it functions in society. The best fix I can propose is to educate people and talk about prejudice. Embrace the uncomfortable conversations and approach each conversation with an understanding that the other individual may have their own bias for a good or bad reason. It isn't up to you to tell them if they are right or wrong. An argument tends to be more destructive, but a conversation is about building on each other's thoughts and learning from each other's ideas. So let's have more conversations about the inconsistencies of modern prejudice.